Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Cornhusker fans of all ages, to the newest episode of the Five Heart Podcast, brought to you by cornnation.com. Let's welcome our fearless leader back from the dead, John Johnston. How's it going in Chaska, Minnesota tonight?
It's going really well, Todd. You sound like you're preparing for a colonoscopy.
No, I'm
a little constipated. The laxative hasn't started working yet, man.
I've had mine. I'm in good shape.
Okay, good.
So, and we're joined tonight by our resident wrestling aficionado, Dylan Guenther. Dylan, how are things going with you tonight?
Going good, man. Just
good.
Ready to get the podcast going, ready for Big Tens this weekend.
You bet. You betcha. Well, I'll tell you what, let's get right to it. Before we hit on man's oldest sport and the outstanding tournament we're going to have this weekend in Lincoln, John, I read your flakes this morning.
Yes.
And you made reference to a baseball game.
I did make reference to a baseball game.
That may have been the most fantastic baseball game played yet this year.
Yes.
Yes. And we're talking the Iowa Hawkeyes, folks.
We are talking Iowa baseball.
We're talking Iowa baseball. And as we mentioned a few months ago about, the incredible job scheduling quality opponents that the Iowa Hawkeye baseball team had done, they spread the joy. They scheduled Division II schools. They scheduled Division III schools, to give everybody an opportunity to play. And they might even have scheduled some high school teams. We're not quite sure. But Tuesday, the Hawkeyes invited the Loris Dewhawks from Dubuque, Iowa, down to Dwayne Banks Field in Iowa City. One of those body bag games. And Loris beat them 3-1, a Division III school.
That's something you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to beat the teams that are Division III and don't actually give scholarships to anyone. And what I understand was Loris pitched an incredible game and held the mighty vaunted Hawkeye offense to 1 point, 1 run.
Oh, I'll tell you what. It's a good thing that Iowa hasn't scheduled any more Division III opponents. That could really mess with their RPI. So
they might have to schedule some high schools. Loris has a special connection to you. Tell Dylan what it is.
My daughter was a softball player at Loris. She was a Dewhawk, and she had a good time there. She was a good player, had a lot of fun. But it was kind of funny because a couple of weeks ago, she remarked, we were talking about the spring schedule with Loris, and she said, our baseball team's going to suck this year. And then we beat the Iowa Hawkeyes. Oh, my goodness. That's great. Well, we can segue a little bit because a lot of times, most of our listeners are aware if you mention Iowa Hawkeyes, you kind of think wrestling. And we have Dylan here tonight because this weekend, for the first time since Nebraska has been in the Big Ten Conference, Nebraska is hosting the Big Ten Wrestling Tournament down at Pinnacle Bank Arena. The Big Ten Wrestling Tournament, head and shoulders above any other conference, is the most incredible, the toughest conference wrestling tournament there is in college wrestling. And Dylan is here to talk to us a little bit tonight about the Nebraska Cornhuskers, the tournament in general. So Dylan, just take it away, and John and I will jump in when we think we have something to add. Okay. So,
all right, I'll do my best. You talk about the Big Ten being super tough. Yesterday at Mark Manning's press conference, he actually mentioned that he thinks the Big Ten tournament is tougher than the NCAA tournament. I would tend to agree with him because you don't get those first two matches against, maybe lower level opponents. It's right out of the gate, Big Ten competition. Everybody's good. I mean, this conference, you see a lot of guys with 4, 5, 6 losses ranked ahead of guys with 1 or 2 losses. And that's for a reason, because you're going into every week, you're wrestling number 6, you're wrestling number 2, you're wrestling number 8, you're wrestling number 4. Like there's no weeks off. This weekend, there's going to be no rounds off. I mean, every guy really has to wrestle every match like it's the final. Nebraska has Nebraska's kind of top heavy this year a little bit, where they have, about 5 or 6 guys that figure to do pretty well, but they also have a few guys that are ranked, pretty low that, will need some upsets or some help to get into the NCAA tournament after this weekend. Like the Big Ten, an article, I think in December, about that this might be the toughest year of wrestling ever, because you got guys coming back with their extra COVID year. You got guys coming back off of Olympic red shirts. Talking to you, Michigan, right? Penn State's got 4 NCAA champions coming back. Iowa's the defending national champs as a team. I'll tell you what, Nebraska last year finished 3rd. 2 years ago, they took 2nd. And I think it would be absolutely astonishing if Nebraska was able to finish in the top 3 as a team this year because of how stacked this conference is.
Dylan, you mentioned the depth and how tough it is. There are literally guys wrestling in the tournament this weekend that are in their 7th year of college.
Right.
Due to medical hardship, due to the extra COVID year or the Olympic red shirt year. You think about that there are, 25-year-old men, maybe 26, that are going to be competing out there on the mat against, some guys that might be 19. It's just, it's going to be an incredible tournament. It's just really kind of a fluke where you have that kind of strength and depth. Well,
I mean, definitely. Iowa has Michael Kemmerer. He's a 7th-year guy. Christian Lance for Nebraska. He's a 7th-year guy. And yeah, you're right. You're seeing 24, 25, maybe 26-year-olds going against 18, 19-year-olds in some cases. I mean, Iowa's got a freshman at 125 that I think he might be 19, So this is really a weird year where, man, it's been a while. There hasn't been a lot of turnover in NCAA wrestling the last couple of years.
No. Well, let's get started with the Nebraska team a little bit. And, as you mentioned, Dylan, it's kind of a top heavy team. There are, 5, 6, maybe 7 guys that I think Coach Manning's probably going to look, to score some points. Of course, that you don't want to count out the other ones and you hope that they can get some wins and maybe advance a little bit. But I do know that Nebraska's got one top seeded wrestler. They got one number 1 seeded wrestler, and that's Eric Schultz up at 197 pounds. Interestingly enough, with Eric Schultz at one point this year, I don't think he was ranked outside of the top 8, I believe, for maybe a week or two. And now he's the top seeded guy in the Big Ten Conference. Talk to us a little bit about Eric Schultz up there at 197 pounds.
Yeah, Eric Schultz is a guy that, he's 14-1 this year. He's the number 1 seed. He was the number 1 seed last year at Big Tens. He has never finished as an All-American, though. So I really think he's going to kind of take advantage of this extra year and get on the podium. But like I said, he's number 1 seed, but the guy that's number 2 seed in the Big Ten, Zach Dean from Penn State, is actually the number 1 ranked guy in the country. the reason that Schultz has this number 1 seed is because he went undefeated in Big Ten play, and Max Dean did not. And Eric Schultz his only loss in the year was to Stephen Buchanan of Wyoming, and I think he's ranked number 3 right now, I want to say. But I mean, he's put together some pretty solid years in a row. He's only lost to the top guys the last 2 years. I say if there's anybody that has a chance at a Big Ten title individually, it's Eric Schultz. But it'll be interesting. I mean, he didn't wrestle Max Dean in the duel because, Dean didn't wrestle. We don't know why, but I think it's good that the Big Ten gave Eric Schultz the 1 seed because guess what? He's undefeated in conference play, and Penn State's guy didn't wrestle him.
Yep.
So, he should the number 1 seed. He deserves it.
Sure. I can't think of all the rest of the seeds off the top of my head, but, probably the Nebraska wrestler that has come on the strongest here at the end of the year, had a big win in the last duel against Iowa, is at 174 pounds, Mikey Labriola. I personally wasn't all that impressed with Labriola early in the season. I thought he was pretty sloppy and just, he's a hell of a scrambler, and that plays to his advantage. But early in the season, it seemed like he was really giving up his legs a lot and maybe wasn't on top of his game. But he knocked off Michael Kemmerer, who you mentioned a little bit earlier, who was NCAA runner-up last year. And Mikey Labriola won the match. I mean, it wasn't a fluke. Mikey Labriola won that match against Kemmerer. So I think he's seated 3rd in this tournament. Talk a little bit about the young man from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Labriola is a junior, so that means we get him 1 more year, which is good. He just beat Michael Kemmerer, who was ranked number 2. And with how deep this weight class is in the Big Tens, that win alone pushed Michael Kemmerer to the 4 seed. And which means that, if you look at the bracket, number 1 seed is Carter Sirachi of Penn State, national champion, undefeated. Sirachi and Kemmerer, they both wrestled at the Big Ten final last year and the NCAA final last year. And this year it's going to be a semifinal matchup. So that just shows how deep the Big Ten is, that, the 2 guys at the finals last year are in the semis this year. Also with Labriola's season, it hasn't been verified. The team doesn't talk about it that much, doesn't put out information. But Labriola was a late scratch at U23s. I think that he probably, he might have had COVID at some point, and I think he came back and he kind of struggled in Big Ten play. So I don't know, I can't speculate too much, but there was something going on where the first couple matches of Big Ten play, he wasn't himself. But the last couple of matches he's wrestled, especially against Kemmerer, he seems to be peaking at the right point. This is a really, really deep weight class where the top 4 seeds at Big Tens are actually number 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, the 5 seed is ranked number 7. So
how many of those guys get to go to the NCAA?
Oh, all of them.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Well, at that weight class, they qualified probably 6 or 7 weights or guys. So,
yeah, most weight classes at Big Tens is going to be 8 to 10 guys. The top 8 to 10 guys are going to go to NCAAs.
Yeah. So you mentioned something, and I'm going to kind of skip around on you here a minute, but I want to draw the connection here. You mentioned how, it's likely that the 2 guys that wrestled the NCAA championship match last year are going to meet up in the semifinals at this weight class, Sirachi and Kemmerer. Right. And the same thing is in play at heavyweight with Gable Stevenson and Mason Paris. Now, Gable Stevenson, John, he's your Minnesota boy up there, Olympic gold medalist, WWE NIL beneficiary. Anybody that's seen Gable Stevenson wrestle, you have to absolutely respect the incredible athlete that he is for a young man at that is that size. Christian Lance from Nebraska has had a real good season. I think he's benefited from having Terrell Delagnov in the room.
Right.
New assistant coach definitely has benefited there. But Dylan, Tony Cassiope is going to be the number 2 seed from Iowa. Anybody touch Gable Stevenson, or is this Gable Stevenson shows up and it's his tournament to dominate?
Honestly, right now, I would say just in general, this is kind of the golden age of heavyweights, where, a lot of years, a guy like Tony Cassiope or Greg Kerfleet would be NCAA favorite. But Gable Stevenson, I honestly think he's the best wrestler I've ever seen. I actually saw him in a duel when he was a true freshman. And it was, the guy went and won a gold medal in the Olympics. He's lost 2 matches his entire career. And it's a lot of it's the eye test, where watching him wrestle, I couldn't imagine heavyweight beating him ever.
Yeah.
Like,
he's so fast.
The Gable
just
Stevenson,
fast.
Yeah, the Gable Stevenson that's wrestling right now, honestly, he can't be beat. He can't. Like, if I was a betting man, I'd put every single cent I own on Gable Stevenson winning Big Tens, NCAAs, any wrestling tournament he ever enters. And that's kind of like, it's kind of sad for like guys like Tony Cassiope and like Greg Kerfleet, who are really good, that like you just have to kind of wait for him to go away. And Christian Lance is kind of he's one of those guys that he's 13-6 on the year. He's really good, but like when you're facing guys like Gable Stevenson, Kerfleet, Cassiope, Mason Paris, like it's hard to manufacture wins.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dylan. I think it is a golden age for heavyweights, and you say that, and then you have to qualify it with how much better Gable Stevenson is than the others. I mean, you got to throw Colton Schultz in there from Arizona State. I mean, You've got 4 guys that are wrestling heavyweight right now that have won world titles at their age group level. Gable Stevenson obviously won the Olympics. Tony Cassiope has won a world title in an age group at heavyweight. So has Kerfleet, and so has Mason Paris and Colton Schultz. So there's 5 of them that have won world titles at age group at that weight, which is just phenomenal. And Gable Stevenson can blow any of them out of the gym. It's just amazing. So.
Yes. So what you're saying is this is the best year of college wrestling in its history, right?
I think it's one of
definitely.
the most dominant years, or one of the strongest years.
It's the best year of college wrestling in history. Yes. And it's the best conference in college wrestling. And for the Big Ten to have their championship in Lincoln, Nebraska, I mean, what are they going to see down there? You guys are going, right? You're going to be in Texas unless the world comes apart again.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. You're going to be there, aren't you, Dylan? You're going to get down there.
Yeah, I'm going to be there on Saturday. Yeah.
They have been marketing this. To be honest with you, this venue is perfect for wrestling fans because Pinnacle is right down there in the Haymarket. All the fans are going to flood into that part of town and hang out there between sessions. All those businesses down there, they're going to be raking in the dough. Wrestling fans drink like fish. Every establishment down there is going to be just bonkers. And you're going to have, I don't know how many people that they can fit into Pinnacle Bank Arena, but even back during before the first duel against Purdue this year, Coach Manning remarked they have sold almost all of the tickets. I mean, I've not heard anybody say it's a sellout yet, but I do know that even a couple months ago they had sold the majority of the tickets, vast majority of the tickets. You're going to have a whole slug of people from Iowa. They're going to come. They follow like nobody else. Nebraska fans are going to show up. There's going to be a good chunk of Nebraska fans. Penn State people, they're coming because in their mind, they're going to win the tournament. Minnesota people travel. Anybody that's got any kind of an idea about what college wrestling is about, they want to come and watch Gable Stevenson, if for no other reason than to see history happen. It might be the last chance, before the NCAA tournament that you get to see the kid wrestle. He may retire this year and go into professional wrestling. So anyway, Dylan, we also, I want you to remark a little bit, Ridge Lovett has had a really good year. He's looking real tough. At 149 pounds, you got Chad Red in there at 141, probably, arguably the toughest weight class or the deepest weight class, in the nation. Let's not forget Peyton Robb in there at 157. And you also got Taylor Venz at 184. Kind of bring us up to speed on where those guys are at right now and what you think their opportunities are.
Okay. Yeah. Two guys for Nebraska, Chad Red, Taylor Venz. They're very hit or miss. And they've kind of proven in their careers that they kind of excel in tournament play rather than duels. So I expect pretty big things out of Red and Venz. Venz has kind of been coming on lately. So is Chad Red. But like you said, Chad Red's in a bracket with Nick Lee, who's a national champ, Jaden Ironman, Big Ten champ, Sebastian Rivera, two-time Big Ten champ, and Chad Red's a 4 seed, and he's a 4-time All-American. So it doesn't get any harder than that. Taylor Venz in his bracket, he's a 4 seed. So if he makes it to the semis, he's going to meet number 1 Aaron Brooks, who has only lost one time in his career, and that was to Taylor Venz.
Yep.
So I don't know, man. It's honestly like a lot of these Big Ten brackets, like seeds are cool, but like just throw them in a mix and like find out what happens at the end. Like there's a few guys that are really, like Gable Steveson is going to win, right? There's a few guys that are very heavy favorites to win. But there are also a lot of weight classes where, guess what? These brackets never go to chalk. They don't. And there will be some upsets. And, maybe Chad Red beats Nick Lee for the first time in college. I don't know. But it's possible. He's wrestled him tough. Taylor Venz, maybe he could beat Aaron Brooks. Maybe he can be the only guy that does it. I don't know. Taylor Venz was a finalist last year at Big Tens. Like this Nebraska team is really good, but like I said, this year, every team, like Michigan has a great team. Penn State has an amazing team. They have 5 guys ranked number 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
That's insane. I can't say, I haven't gone back and looked, but I don't think any team's ever had 5 number 1s. That's half your lineup is the best in the country. That's just.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Could you explain what you mentioned that some guy you mentioned was like one of the top wrestlers, but he's never been an All-American. Then this other guy he's a 4-time All-American. What the hell does it take to be an All-American?
An All-American is like you finish the top 8 at NCAA tournament.
That's it?
Yep.
That's it. Top 8. But the NCAA tournament has 33 guys, and you have to qualify to get there. It's not easy. Like I said, Chad Red's done it 4 times, dude.
You've raised the bar so high. You put the bar someplace, and I'm like, well, that doesn't sound too hard because all you guys you're talking about are all ranked way up here.
That's the quality of the conference.
Yeah, and I suppose if you get knocked out by one of them, you get a bad draw in the NCAA tournament, you got to wrestle a good guy, then you're gone and you don't get the chance to become an All-American.
Right. Like, okay, I'm going to give you a crazy stat. Okay. So we all know these guys. Okay. Chad Red, right? He has the same amount of All-Americans himself as Mikey Labriola, Taylor Vance, Eric Schultz, Christian Lance combined. Okay. Labriola is 3-time. Venz did it 1 time. Schultz and Lance have never done it.
So this is their year.
Well, you would hope so. It's their last one, so they better be.
Wow.
Well, Chad Red is he's Mr. March, and he's always wrestled well in March, and a lot of it comes down to the bracket. It's important to do well at the Big Ten. It's not the end of the world if you don't, it's because they're going to qualify so many people. But there's another example. You got a kid from Iowa, Alex Marinelli, in there, at 165. And he wasn't an All-American last year. He got injured and right. But I think a lot of people would say that over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, Alex Marinelli's been one of the best wrestlers in the country, and he's never won a national championship.
Absolutely.
But it's hard to say he's not one of the best. And you got this guy that Dylan mentioned earlier at 141, Sebastian Rivera, Seabass. He's won Big Ten championships. He's beaten national champions, or he's beaten guys who went on to be national champions. He beat Spencer Lee,
right?
133 pounder, and I'm not going to be able to think of his name.
It wasn't Roman Bravo Young. DeSanto?
Yeah, he's beaten DeSanto. I'm kind of blank, but anyway, here's a guy who now he's up another weight class. And to be honest, in my opinion, if anybody is primed to knock off a big name, I think it might be Rivera.
I think that's the toughest weight to call, honestly, 41, because there's, counting Chad Red, there's 4 guys that I would not be surprised if they won. I really wouldn't.
Yeah.
I could see, Sebastian Rivera, he's undefeated this year, and he's tech falling everybody, but he hasn't had to face Nick Lee, Ironman, or Chad Red yet. So it's kind of like, well, what do you like? Great, you're 18-0 with all tech falls, but you haven't faced the big guns yet.
Dylan, real quick, and then I know John's got some questions, but Chad Red knocked off Nick Lee in high school, didn't he, for his state championship? I was thinking. Yeah. Their
final match in high school, Chad Red beat Nick Lee for the state title, and I think Nick Lee is 4-0 against him in college. Yeah. It's been close though. There's been a lot of 5-4 matches and stuff.
Right. Well, you kind of focused in on things, so kind of wrap things up a little bit.
No, wait. Yep. I got questions. I got dumb guy.
John, I said you had questions.
I got dumb guy questions.
All right, John.
First of all, my I guess I shot the Big Ten tournament a few years ago, and time goes fast for old people. So I was 30, 40 years ago now, it seems like. But one of the things I remember about being at the Big Ten tournament was the rivalries between guys I mean, at one point, I'm watching this match over here, and there's this utter explosion on another mat. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And one of the guys turns to me and he said, there's some rival between some Rutgers guy and the Iowa guy, and the coaches are screaming at the Rutgers guy, and the Rutgers guy is pointing at the Iowa coaches, and the Iowa coaches are nutballs and firebrands. And I mean, you guys know what the rivalries are. And probably, I'm guessing most wrestling fans that are going to go to this are probably going to know, this guy and this guy are, and people are going to, this is on the BTN network, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, are people going to turn this on? And if they see a match, who do they want to watch? Obviously, Gable Stevenson is kind of like the thing that you turn it on and you go watch him destroy a guy. He threw two people right in front of me. And it was freaking amazing. And I'll tell this quick story. I probably told it before, but I watched him wrestle the Wisconsin guy, and I'm at the edge of the mat, right? We're right up where you can be with a camera. And this young woman comes up next to me, and she puts her camera out further onto the mat than where our lines are. And I turned and I looked at her and I said, you need to pull your camera back, and you need to get back a little. And she kind of gives me a nasty look. And I said, listen, Gable Stevenson's going to come out here. He's going to toy with this Wisconsin wrestler. And at the end of the match, right before it ends, he's going to pick him up and throw him. And he could hit your equipment and they could get injured, or you could get injured. And she gives me this dirty look again. And one of the coaches behind me, and he says, yeah, you need to move your camera gear, because he's right that this is going to happen. And literally with 10 seconds left in the match, Gable Stevenson is just kind of bouncing around like he's got a rag doll in front of him, and he picks this freaking Wisconsin wrestler up, throws him like a dummy, and smash right 3 feet in front of us. And it was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen live. But I mean, if people are going to watch this on BTN, other than Gable Stevenson, what do they want to watch? All of the Big Ten wrestlers. Who are the top guys in each weight? Besides Nebraska guys, obviously we want to watch Nebraska guys.
Well, I would say, honestly, anybody in a Penn State singlet. They got 4 national champions there, but I would say Aaron Brooks at 184 is probably the most dominant guy outside of Gable. Mm-hmm. Maybe Nick Lee at 41, but that weight's so deep that if he could lose to Ironman, I could see it. Iowa's got a lot of guys, although what's crazy is Iowa could win this and they don't have a number 1 seed.
Right.
Because of depth.
I think their lowest seed is a 6.
Yeah.
And that's pretty incredible. It's definitely Penn State has the top tier guys, and it's kind of Penn State's champions against Iowa's depth.
Yeah.
And that's what it's kind of going to come down to. But honestly, this tournament, John, any match would be good.
Yeah.
If you love wrestling, turn on the TV.
Well, and I'll tell you what, too, just for pure excitement, you watch Austin DeSanto from Iowa at 133 pounds. The guy is a machine. He's wound tight, and he goes, 100 miles an hour from start to finish. He's really fun to watch. Ridge Lovett from Nebraska is really fun to watch. Now, he's gotten a little more conservative, it seems like, here this year. But if Ridge Lovett gets into a situation, with some of the opponents, especially if he matches up against Max Mirren again, Katie bar the door. There'll be a lot of fireworks in that match. Both of them are fun to watch. Mikey Labriola is fun to watch.
Yeah, I always liked him.
It just their style is kind of conducive to that.
And also, if you are a fan of like mat wrestling, the scrambles, Sammy Sasso, yes. Ohio State, 149, is one of the funnest dudes in the world. He literally will just stick the leg out and want you to grab it so he can get into a scramble situation, cut the corner, and score on you.
Yep. Yeah. It's
Okay.
yeah. And, you know, it's just, it's pretty, now, other than that, you know, and John, you recognize this when you were at that tournament. You've got 3 other people that are in that gym that are wound so damn tight, someday they're going to explode. One of them is named Mark Manning. One of them is named Terry Brands. And the other one is named Tom Brands.
Yeah.
And then you have the next level where they might almost internally combust. And that consists of many of the assistant coaches. There will, you know, for the fans that are in the arena, they'll get as much of a kick watching those coaches pointing fingers at each other, storming out onto the mats, as they will some of the wrestlers. And you know, with at the Iowa-Nebraska duel, which was an incredible event this year with the raised mat and the spotlight and that kind of stuff, there was as much of excitement with the Brands guys and Manning and Brian Snyder and those guys firing back and forth at each other. So it's wrestling's a very close personal sport.
Yeah. I will say Mark Manning's probably one of the funnest coaches to watch during a match.
Yes.
Because he looks like he's wrestling. You know,
He's constantly yelling throughout the entire.
He's doing the moves. He's like underhook, go. You know.
You know, I'm 60 years old and Mark Manning's older than me. And I would pity the guy who thinks if he saw, you know, because Mark's body's beat up a little bit, you know, but he's still fit and in shape. But
yeah,
you see the guy walking sometimes, he might be hobbling or a little stooped or whatever. I pity the guy, the 26-year-old or the 35-year-old that sees that old man over there. Because I'll tell you what, Mark Manning would just twist somebody into knots. I tell you what, I think he's probably as tough as he was when he was 23 years old wrestling for UNO. I would not touch Mark Manning unless I was well armed.
No. Yeah.
he is a meth addict without the meth. That's when I first met him was at an alumni event, and I talked to him for a while, and I was like, oh my God, this guy is just even when he's standing there, when you're just standing there talking to him one-on-one, it's still like, you know what I mean? So I have another dumb guy question.
Okay, shoot.
And it's this. You guys are talking about these wrestlers being so close to each other that what it sounds like to me is like any kind of thing whatsoever can throw something off, right? So, I mean, like right now, before we started this, I had Qdoba for supper, and I'm sitting here trying to not, experience the effects of the Qdoba meal because I don't eat a lot of fast food. But, I mean, guys have to have routines. They have to have a specific diet, right? Don't they follow this stuff? Is it very tightly controlled? And if anything gets off there, does it affect them that much? Or is it like, that's kind of, I guess, what I thought of when you guys were talking about like 4 guys that have won national titles in the same class or something. What throws them off?
Well, there's an incredibly strong mental element to wrestling. And sometimes it doesn't take much to take a guy out of his game. I remember the first time that Austin DeSanto wrestled against Roman Bravo Young when Roman Bravo Young from Penn State, national champ, put his left hand on his own knee and refused to tie up with DeSanto. And that took away all of DeSanto's offense. And he was a wreck mentally for that match. He's adjusted since and adapted to it. But the first time I remember watching that wrestling match, and DeSanto just he absolutely fell apart. You know, you have some guys that are the toughest guys in the world, but if they tweak a knee at the edge of the mat, sometimes that just blows them up mentally more than it hurts them physically, if that makes any sense. And it's not because they're not tough. It's just
you got to look at it. You have to put so much pressure on one joint to be able to do a lot of the stuff you're doing in wrestling. I can see where that would make me a little freaked out.
Right. And also, like, let's not also forget these guys are young men.
Yeah.
Like, to us, they're kids. They're 19, 22, 23. I mean, maybe their girlfriend broke up with them. I don't know. Like, maybe they're hungover. Who knows?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that goes into it that maybe we don't know. I mean, I don't know. I've seen some matches before. Like, I saw Chad Red wrestle Nick Lee last year in a duel where I thought maybe Chad had somewhere to be. I don't know.
That's kind of his thing, isn't it? Sometimes.
Yeah, in duels, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But it's March now, so we're good. But no, like, if it's a volatile thing. Like, you're on the mat with another guy, mano a mano. There's no other people on the team. It's not football where somebody misses a tackle or misses a block. Like, it's you, man. It's you and him, and you're trying to, rip each other's arms off.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, what else we got about the Big Ten wrestling tournament in Lincoln, Nebraska this weekend?
Well, I'll throw.
Okay, I have more thing.
Oh, go ahead, Dylan. I got a question for you, but you go first.
Okay. So, Chad Red, Eric Schultz, Taylor Vens are all seniors, and they're all 4-year starters. Theoretically, they could all notch their 100th win this weekend.
That seems like a lot.
I believe there's only 26 Huskers ever to do it. And Chad Red has 95 wins. Eric Schultz has 97. And Taylor Vens has 95. So Eric Schultz, if he wins out, his 100th win is him being a Big Ten champ.
Cool.
Chad Red and Taylor Vens, they both have 95, and they both have to face a NCAA champ possibly in the semifinal, which means they'll likely be in the back half of the bracket where you get a couple of extra matches.
Right.
So we could honestly see all those guys hit 100 wins this weekend.
Wow.
And I don't know if that's ever happened.
Weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my little stat for the day.
Your little trivia stat there.
There you go.
So my question for you, Dylan, it's I think most observers would say it's going to be, the team title is going to be decided between Penn State and Iowa. And you've already kind of mentioned it's the Penn State individual studs against Iowa depth. Personally, I don't know that Iowa can catch Penn State. I think Penn State's going to win the tournament. I think Iowa's got a better chance to get them at the NCAA tournament when there's more possible points.
Right.
But in that third hole, I think most people are probably thinking Michigan's going to fall in there. My question is, if, Nebraska's got, they got the home crowd, they're wrestling in Nebraska. We've talked through, where those guys are in the lineup. What's it going to take for Nebraska to finish in third place as a team? Now, you said earlier in the podcast, they might be lucky to get. Those weren't your words, but it would be great if they could get there. What's it going to take for Nebraska to get third as a team?
Well, first you're going to need your guys. Eric Schultz, he's going to have to get to the final. You're going to have to probably get Mikey Labriola to the final. You're going to need guys like Chad Red, Taylor Venz, Christian Lance to get some wins on the backside. Also, you got 3 freshmen going, Bubba Wilson at 65, Jeremiah Reno at 125, and Dominic Serrano at 133. They're going to need to notch some wins. And if they're on the back half of the bracket, you might need to get a major decision out of somebody. Ridge Lovett's going to have to get to the final against Sasso if Nebraska wants to honestly finish third as a team, because Ohio State's tough too. Let's not forget, Michigan's there, Ohio State's there, but also Nebraska. It's kind of those 3 teams are kind of vying for the third spot. And Nebraska's going to need some bonus points and a couple guys to maybe outperform their seed. Now, it'd be tough, but everybody on Nebraska's roster has kind of shown the ability to do that at times, but also at times they haven't. Like a guy like Peyton Robb, okay? To start the year, he beat NCAA champ, and then he took another NCAA champ to overtime. Yep. Now, in Big Ten play, he's kind of fallen off, but he has all the ability in the world to outperform his 5 seed. Now, does he do it? I don't know. He hasn't been really wrestling that well lately, but anything's possible at the tournament. Like, a lot of guys are just better at tournaments as you get matches going. When you get 1, 2, 3, 4 matches, rather than a duel where they just wait all night to wrestle one.
Right.
It depends on the individual kind of, because sometimes you see guys that are really good in a tournament and will lose a duel once in a while, like a Taylor Venz, where you're like, what? Like, he lost to the Purdue's guy.
Yeah.
But then he'll go to a tournament and blast 4 guys in a row. So yeah, it's really tough to say, but Nebraska's going to have to outperform some seeds. If they want to get third, they're probably going to have 2 individual champs. And that would be between Schultz, Labriola, and Lovett, I would assume. Probably 3 guys have the best chance of getting, the title. But it's going to be tough, man. I honestly, with this crop of teams, 4th or 5th place is nothing to be ashamed of.
No. As a team or as an individual, both, to be quite honest. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Dylan, we personally, I love the job that you do covering Nebraska wrestling. For people that don't jump on the website on a regular basis, not only does Dylan do a great job covering Nebraska Cornhusker wrestling during the season, he also writes a wonderful recap at the end of every year and great previews leading into the season. And more important, in recent years, Nebraska has had quite a few of their wrestlers, compete internationally, in what is normally called the off season for college wrestling. And Dylan does a great job covering that as well. So I think, quite honestly, being a wrestling fan for the vast majority of my life and coaching and competing and officiating and everything else, there's not a better writer of the sport of wrestling than our own Dylan Guenther. And Dylan, I mean that sincerely, and just we're so appreciative that you're contributing to Corn Nation. So thank you very much for that.
Appreciate that, man.
We are, kind of in that time of year where we have other things going on. John, right. Somebody told me that Fred Hoiberg read your article that Nebraska should keep Fred Hoiberg as the basketball coach. And I think because of your influence, Fred said, they're right. And all of a sudden he started coaching some players that have shown they can win a few basketball games. What the hell's going on with that, John? We're winning men's basketball games.
It's weird. It is weird. I mean, we've watched this team go out and, I think at the most of the games they played this season, they played pretty decent in the first half. And then like at the beginning of the second half, they come out and go, well, that was good enough. And then they get destroyed. And I mean, they went to Penn State and they stomped the living shit out of Penn State. Did you guys watch this game at all?
Listen to that game. Yeah.
Penn State, it was senior night at Penn State, and Penn State has a big guy named John Harrar, and he was visibly extremely upset that they were just slaughtered. What'd we win by like 20, 25? And it wasn't really that close because at the end of the game, we did everything we could to not hit 100. So that was pretty shocking, but you kind of go, okay, Penn State, they're not the, not the premier people, but then they go to Ohio State, and Ohio State was ranked, and it's a really bad loss for them. And the TV guys kept pointing that out. This is a quad 4 loss for Ohio State. That's the worst loss you can have. So I would say that this Nebraska basketball season hasn't been the one we wanted, but if we can ruin some people's nights and make them feel really bad about themselves and hurt the NCAA seeds, then that's what we need to do for the rest of this season. We need to do as well as we can, beat Wisconsin maybe on their home floor. That would be shocking everybody. And then, just win a game or two in the Big Ten tourney. I think that the difference that I've seen is this. In past games, when you saw certain guys come on the floor, I think the team would just completely lose confidence in themselves. And really specifically, Eduardo Andre. I think the rest of the team looked at him and said, he's not that good a Big Ten big guy to replace Derek Walker. And I think that really hurt their confidence. And then Alonzo Verge can be one of the best guards. But then on the other hand, he can play where he's like, this is about me and this is about me. Well, I think against Ohio State, he had more assists than any Big Ten guard all season in the first half or something like that. But when he does that, they play well and they move the ball around, or they were in the past, they started relying on Bryce, let's give the ball to Rice and we'll all stand around. Well, now they're not standing around as much. They're moving the ball around. And then the other shocking thing is they put the effort into playing defense, and that's the reason why they won these last 2 games. And they were 2 very good games. And 2, honestly, kind of, Penn State was dominant. And I think when you watched Ohio State, because of your Nebraska, we suck and we're going to collapse at any moment thing, you're waiting with 3 minutes left to go, okay, let me down. Come on. Who are these people? Let me down. You've done this so many times. And then they didn't. They stayed in that game and they kept scoring and answering Ohio State scores. And that was phenomenal. So, more of this. I can handle more of this.
Good on them. The women's team has had a good season. They're playing Illinois tonight as we record this. I haven't followed along, but it is in the Big Ten tournament, and they're hoping to at least play up to their seed and get a bid for the Ncaa tournament. That'd be a great step for the women's program and Coach Williams. Let's see. What's that? What's that other sport that Nebraska's? Oh, football.
I thought you were going to say bowling.
Bowling. There. Yeah. Well, I read that bowling's won 5 tournaments this season. Defending national champs have won 5 tournaments. We got spring practice for football with the new offensive coaching staff and of course, why wouldn't there be good news coming out of spring football? There always is good news, with spring football. I guess kind of finishing our lap around Nebraska sports, the baseball team is off to an unexpected slow start. They've only won 1 ball game so far this year, but the Cornhuskers are going to play down in Arlington, Texas again.
What was the last game against TCU? We had the bases loaded bottom of the 9th.
Bases loaded.
Bases
loaded.
Bottom of the ninth. And
bottom of the ninth, and the guy beat the throw to first base, but he was called out.
And, it wasn't even close. That was like that'd be like a call I would make. Like, who's that crusty old man with long hair out there? Can't see. God, it was. And then Will Bolt got tossed after the game.
He got tossed out of the game when the game was over.
So he has to sit out the first game this weekend, I think.
I think that's what they've said. So I'm going to go down and watch. I'm headed to Austin, Texas for a conference. Going to be in Arlington and watch and play on Saturday. So hopefully, hopefully I bring them some good luck down there too. They are changing up their starting pitching rotation a little bit. Be kind of interesting to see how that all works. So I think we've kind of covered our bases, no pun intended. With
there's only one thing left that I can think of.
Oh, well, you better fill us in, John.
If Iowa beats Nebraska in baseball, that means by transitive, whatever that is, that Loras College will have beaten Nebraska. Your daughter will never let you hear the end of that.
Yeah.
So I hope you can go to sleep tonight, Todd.
Well, I'll tell you what, John. I guess I can't remember from the schedule, but I think Iowa does play baseball at Nebraska this year. I think it's in Lincoln. I do have a Loras baseball cap, so I will wear my Loras baseball cap and try to make myself visible to the Iowa Hawkeye fans and Iowa Hawkeye baseball team. So maybe what I could do is hang over the dugout like the kids do in the beginnings of the game, to get the baseballs autographed. I'll have my Loras hat and see if those Hawkeye players will autograph my Loras cap. Well, folks, that about does it for us. I think we're all at least the two old guys are shot. It looks like Dylan, he's primed for a night out on the town. So we want to thank our outstanding wrestling writer, Dylan Guenther, for joining us here tonight and giving all of us a preview of the Big Ten wrestling tournament. And honestly, folks, if you have a chance, if you've never been to a big time college wrestling meet, you've got an opportunity here in your backyard. So get out there and go watch the Huskers and the rest of the Big Ten. So with that being said, on behalf of our founding father, John Johnston and Dylan Guenther, I'm Todd Wolverton, reminding you that 5 heart is all the heart you need. John?
Go Big Red and win some wrestling matches.
Thank you very much.